Welcome back to Chasing Brighter, the podcast created as a guide to living brighter, more connected, and real. This season, we are choosing real over perfect.
As you know, this month we've been talking about resting, resetting, and reconnecting. And February can be a complicated month for many of us. Valentine's Day shines a spotlight on connection, but not always in a gentle or inclusive way.
It can amplify loneliness, comparison, or that quiet feeling of, am I behind somehow?
And what's tricky is that even people who are partnered, surrounded by others, or very busy can still feel deeply disconnected during this time.
Because connection isn't just about who's around you, it's about whether you're connected to yourself.
And let's just kind of explore how disconnection may be showing up in our lives. Disconnection from ourself often shows up in subtle ways, not necessarily dramatic ones. It can look like resentment, doing things you don't want to do and then feeling bitter about it, numbness, where we're just going through the motions without really feeling present. People pleasing, which, so many times is prioritizing harmony over honesty and not really putting yourself first, or saying yes when you mean no because it feels safer or easier in the moment.
Yeah, it's sort of like, again, that inner knowing of something doesn't feel right in terms of that. And the important thing to know is that these aren't character flaws. They're often coping strategies and ways your nervous system has learned to stay safe, connected, or accepted.
So if you hear yourself in any of this, there is nothing wrong with you.
You can be surrounded by people, friends, family, coworkers, and still not really be with yourself. That's the idea of feeling disconnected when you're even around people.
Yeah. And, we're not talking about connecting with others today. We're talking about connecting with yourself. You might be listening, responding, showing up, but internally you can be checked out or overridden.
And that is really what disconnection feels like. It's like the absence of, it's not necessarily the fact that you're not around people and not feeling like you're with people. It's the absence of truly being with yourself.
Yeah. Being alone doesn't mean you're disconnected.
And being busy or socially full doesn't mean you're connected.
Yeah. Some of the most connected moments happen in quiet, ordinary spaces. And some of the loneliest moments can happen in a crowded room.
Connection's not about quantity, it's about presence.
So what does that actually mean to reconnect with yourself? Well, Kelly and I think that reconnecting with yourself doesn't mean a big identity overhaul. It just starts with listening to your body, what feels tense, what feels tired, open, or calm. Listening to your intuition, those inner nudges that often get ignored. Noticing your energy, what drains you, what restores you.
Yeah, I mean, it's really less about the answers and more about just really sitting and being in that awareness of yourself.
And I know we love reflection prompts or questions to ask yourself. And so a question you can ask here is, what feels true for me right now? Not what should feel true, not what used to feel true, just now. Kelly, do you have moments? Do you notice when you're feeling disconnected to yourself? How does that show up? How do you become aware of it?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. And I still go back to us reading Untamed and like your inner knowing. But I think there are these moments where maybe something, as an example, is maybe you're in a social situation and you start to feel like I start to feel even uncomfortable. And maybe there are thoughts in my head and my mind starts racing about something. And that's to me where I start to like think about what's going on with me.
Yeah.
Where I'm maybe feeling tense or feeling some anxiety coming up. and really have to take a minute to kind of like recenter myself in those moments, because it's really about being in that present moment in a way that you want to be, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know I'm going to go off topic a little bit, but the Olympians, watching the Olympics has been really fascinating, because hearing them interviewed right after what is potentially one of the most pivotal moments of their entire careers, and how some are and some aren't, like connecting with themselves in those moments. You notice that too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm
Anyway.
not as, I want to say entrenched because that sounds negative, but like I haven't really been paying attention to the Olympics. Just like some of the interviews
Yeah.
after and everything. And
Yeah.
I've seen like what's come across my desk on the Olympics, and that's probably because of my algorithms, but just the way female athletes are being treated. So that's kind of more, that's coming across, but also more like the questions female athletes are being asked. But I can tell the ones who are connected themselves, because, they respond so clearly and assertively. And it's kind of like, listen, this isn't about this moment. This is about the 20 years of tiny moments that built up to this one moment. So
Yeah.
regardless of
Yes.
how today goes, I know that I stayed longer, worked harder, and invested in myself during this time. So, kind of just being here is a culmination of tiny moments.
Yeah. I think that's a great perspective that you saw. How about you, Jess?
I
Thinking
think,
about this.
first of all, it goes to energy. I know when you and I kind of started meditating and doing more self-work, and maybe 2020 starting, the idea that there's an energy exchange. And so some experiences are energizing and some are depleting. So I'll notice quickly whether something is energizing or depleting. And then is the intuition coming in, then the inner nudges that come in. Then I feel tense. And so I always want to see like, okay, why is this moment depleting? And I've been trying to be super calm. And so I'll notice if I'm getting riled up, because I can easily get riled up. And so then I'll be asking myself, okay, what is happening? I feel an energy shift. The springtime for me for years has been crazy because I have 3 children and my children play sports. And so this is a crazy time. And so I want to be present and calm in my home and be a calm force, and not like, get your clothes, get your bag, I want to be calm. And so if I feel depleted, I don't want to, have an explosive home. And so I notice, okay, what's going on? What's happening here? And, so much it goes to that self care. Okay, what do I need to do to help myself there? And so that is right, because I'm staying connected and I'm not letting all of these external forces like put me on a different path that's not where I want to be. I don't know if I even made any sense there.
Well, as long as it makes sense too. But no, I think when you were talking, I was also thinking about what really kind of like resonated me with what we talked about so far is this idea of being in a room of people but feeling alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely have been feeling that.
Yeah.
And it is kind of weird where I almost feel like my friendships are shifting.
Same.
And so I don't know what I think now that, like, I'm glad we're talking about this, because I feel like what I need to do, it's not even about ending or stepping back from things in some way. It could be, but also like I need to kind of shift my perspective of what I'm getting out of those gatherings, right? So
Yeah.
where it used to be always talking about your kids and blah, 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 I don't have that anymore. My kids are kind of growing to be more independent and they're not part of my identity. I'm trying
That's
to
what
kind of work
I
on
don't think
myself.
it's the age of your kids. I think you've been working, we both have, of developing a full, happy life where when things were off balance, like our kids were like 75% of it. And so that was like our
Yeah.
everything. But like now you have other interests and you don't over-identify with that role.
Yes. Yeah. And so maybe right now, a lot of my social circles, or not a lot of them, but some of them, or whatever it is, tend to be like, maybe the topics tend to be about kids and the trials and tribulations of things that are kind of like my value set is shifting, I'm wondering.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think I don't know if I don't think it's me ending those friendships. I think it's me thinking about how to shift and like reconnect with those
Yeah.
people in other
Yeah.
ways. Does that make sense?
No,
And
totally.
I've always been, and I think you have been too, but I don't like, age is just a number to me. I'm friends with people of all different ages.
Totally.
And I think it goes back to just people who I like connecting with as a human,
Yeah.
not so much maybe, and there are other things. So I don't know. This is an
Well,
interesting
I think
topic.
it goes back to like, I know I've talked about this a million times and we have a reel about it, but when we read that book, The Good Life,
Hmm.
and how people who are happiest have healthy relationships, and they had that audit, the friendship audit of like, write down the 10 people you interact with the most. Identify whether the interactions are depleting and energizing. If they're energizing, how can you see that person more? If they're depleting, can you make it more energizing? If you can't, how do you set boundaries around it? And so it's not like, oh, this interaction is depleting, that person's dead to me. It's like, can I make this more energizing? And so I think that's where you're at. What you're saying is, okay, this was depleting. Can I make it more energizing? So maybe that's my fault here because I used to talk about my kids all the time. So let me see if I can ask Susan to go for a run. And then we talk
Yeah.
about something else. And then
Yeah.
I find like I love, when Taylor Swift had said she says something about your energy is, what is it? Your time is a precious commodity or something. And so not everyone just gets to have your time and energy. And so I feel that way. Like, I feel like my time is very precious. And as we get older, my social circle is getting smaller and smaller and smaller because I'm like, dude, I only have so much energy to give, and I want to be with someone that is just it's going to be great and energizing. And
Like,
that
you don't
doesn't
get a
mean,
lot of chances to
yeah,
like
and
get out.
it
So,
doesn't mean like, oh, obviously things happen. Like, it doesn't mean like, oh, you're having a rough time, I'm not going to talk to you anymore because it's depleting. It doesn't mean that.
yeah, I
Obviously, I'll be
understand.
there for my friends struggling. And this all goes back to, again, it's like, for years, I carried the emotional weight of all of these friendships and did all of the work for these friendships and then didn't know why I was a resentful or angry person, right? So because I wasn't connected to, what do I want? What's happening for me? And
Yes.
so
Yes.
it's like, self-connection is just a slow progress and a slow project for yourself, I guess. And so it's like, how do you build that? And so Kelly and I think it starts with sitting with quiet and asking yourself some questions. So we have some reflection prompts for you today. And this isn't about just fixing yourself overnight. It's slow awareness, right? So we have a
Yes.
few gentle questions for you to sit with. You don't have to journal. You don't have to solve this. Just notice what comes up for you as we explore these questions.
Yeah. So these questions are an invitation to really reconnect with yourself. It's not about changing who you are, anything like that. It's really listening.
So often, connection happens quietly. We move through our days responding to noise, expectations, and habits without pausing to check in with what's actually happening inside us.
Yeah. And these prompts kind of like gently interrupt that like autopilot that we tend to fall into, and help you notice your internal landscape, which is, really parts of your life that feel loud, moments that maybe feel very nourishing, or maybe there are places where you may be moving out of habit rather than alignment.
Again, there's no pressure here to fix, decide, or act. In fact, removing the need for action is what makes this connecting. When you allow yourself to observe without judgment, your nervous system experiences safety, and safety is what makes self-connection possible.
So this is not about fixing. There's no action plan here. This is just noticing. Very easy.
Yes, so this is awareness as the first act of self-connection. So, what feels noisy in my life right now? Not wrong, just loud.
What feels nourishing, even if it's small, especially if it's small?
Where am I saying yes out of habit instead of alignment?
So, why does this matter? Why does self connection matter? When you are connected to yourself, relationships feel clearer.
You're less reactive, you're more honest, you're less likely to abandon yourself to keep the peace.
And boundaries feel kinder, they're not as harsh.
Choices feel steadier, not perfect, just more aligned. Reconnection doesn't just happen internally.
It can also start in our physical space.
Yes. And next
I love
week,
this.
we're talking with Deanna Mole, professional organizer, founder of Dee's Declutter, and host of the Organizing with Ease podcast. Deanna talks with us about how decluttering and organizing can be a powerful way to reconnect with yourself emotionally, mentally, and physically.
Yeah, I love this interview as well. And I think this is great, really kind of thinking about our own awareness, because I know even for me, just sometimes, do you ever come home and there's like messy places and like I feel like my own awareness is like I'm not feeling good about myself, even though that mess is like an external thing. And so it's idea of really like using that, thinking about connecting to your physical space. So I loved our conversation with Deanna, and definitely check it out next week. Remember, this month, we're not talking about being somebody new.
Yeah, we are just talking about coming home to who you already are. And because we're talking about coming home to who we already are and exploring ourselves, we have something so fun coming up for March.
Yeah. So have you ever said to yourself, why can't I just stick to a planner? That is definitely me. But we've created an organizational style quiz to help you discover how your brain works. Not everybody works the same way. So stop copying Instagram systems or YouTube organization videos. And really start building some systems, and maybe you already have them that really work for you, and don't give yourself the guilt of not being like others. So we've got an amazing organizational style quiz you definitely have to check out. And to get it, you want to subscribe to our newsletter at chasingbrighter.com. So choosing real over perfect starts here, everyone.
And if you want to see what we're loving, what we're learning, and how we're living a little brighter day by day, come hang out with us on social media at Chasing Brighter. Thanks for spending part of your day with us.